Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Jacob Wile here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And Tiki will be joining us momentarily. Welcome to part 2 of the great 90s cartoon ranking podcast. Continuing from last time, in which we are ranking our favorite cartoons from the 1990s. This time we're doing our picks from 20 to 11.
3-part saga, kids. Strap in.
Oh my god, it's gonna be huge.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
We can guarantee that some of you guys won't agree with our picks, and probably some of the people on here won't agree with each other's picks.
Jacob, I can guarantee that even based on the thumbnail, Dragon is not going to agree with one pick that you and I share.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much said it so in our private conversation.
Yeah, that's going to be spicy. That's going to be spicy when we get to it.
Oh, well, I'm sure he's made some choices that we won't like, so it evens out.
You know, that's the whole point of the Great Ranking podcast, right? Just to fight about petty opinions and rankings that don't really matter.
Dragon, you have anything to say?
I'm not looking forward to this podcast.
Oh God. That bad.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad.
I know I'm kidding, but what am I supposed to say to that character assassination from this guy? What am I supposed to say to that?
I mean, it's like, he's just joking too.
Yeah, anyway, so before we go on, I guess, just again to reaffirm it, so folks, just we have included essentially a master list. Now, there were a few that were kind of left off because, frankly, I figured they would be very far removed from us putting them on the list, and one of them kind of fell into kind of we had certain things that we did not put on this list, period, like adult animation or anime, because with animes, you have like the year thing, which could be between when it's dubbed and overseas and all that sort of stuff. So, few things like Life with Louie, for example, that's not on the list because I was unsure where that kind of fell in there, and I forgot that Tiki was really into that show. So,
He probably would have made it.
Yeah, but you could have mentioned it too if you really wanted it on there. So, based on that, so fact is, folks, we have roughly 50 plus animated shows that we kind of pulled from, and we've kind of ranked basically the top 30 out of those. So basically, pretty much anything that's on that bottom list that didn't make the cut, that sounds probably going to be on these lists.
We essentially made like a master list of about 50 to 55, and each narrowed it down to 30.
Pretty much, yeah.
And weren't we going to give a recap of our previous picks for this?
Yeah, Tiki, are we going to do that for the last one or this one?
No, we can go ahead and do it for this one too. Let's go ahead and do that really quick. So we'll go in the order that we're going, which is alphabetical, just to keep things simple.
Tiki, you got to do it previously on the X-Men thing. Go on, do it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, it's a previously on Bates Motel thing.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying this for the 90s purposes.
Okay, I'll cue up the cues, okay. Previously on the Great 90s Cartoon Ranking Podcast.
Gene! Anyway. There, Jacob, hit him.
Wait, Dragon, you go first.
Yeah,
all right. We're going to keep the order for all these?
Yeah, keep the order for all of them, yeah.
Just making sure. I thought we were going to maybe swap it. Okay.
No, just keep it simple, keeping the order for all of them.
Okay, so number 30 for me was Two Stupid Dogs. Number 29 was Angry Beavers. Number 28 was Ren and Stimpy. 27 was Beetlejuice. 26 was The Magic School Bus. 25 was Arthur. Insert the steel drums here. Number 24 was Cow and Chicken. Number 23 was the Mask Animated Series. Number 22 was Rocket Power. And number 21 was Doug.
Okay, Jacob?
All right, number 30, CatDog. 29, 101 Dalmatians. 28, Hercules. 27, Arthur. 26, Ren and Stimpy. 25, the Goof Troop. 24, Rocko's Modern Life. 23, Superman, which aka where Dragon began to doubt my list. 22, Timon and Pumbaa. And 21, Johnny Bravo.
Right. For me, I have at number 30, Donkey Kong Country, purely on the so bad it's good, what the hell am I watching factor of it all. I think it's the so bad it's good show of the 90s. 29, Beetlejuice. 28, CatDog. 27, Darkwing Duck. 26, Johnny Bravo. 25, Ren and Stimpy. 24, Tailspin. 23, Rocco's Modern Life. 22, The Magic School Bus. And 21, Angry Beavers. Okay, without further ado, Dragon, go ahead, start us off. What's your number 20?
All right, number 20 for me is the Tick. So here's the thing. I love the Tick, and honestly, I love all the media versions of him. I left the comic off there because the comic, the way that goes, the comic was around very briefly because then it pretty much escalated into Ben Edlund didn't finish the comic and he went to the animated show. So I can't really, most of what I've seen in the comic, I think it's, I don't know, it's something it's not quite, doesn't have quite the pop the animated series does. The point being, Ben Edlund, he's got, basically the Tick is Ben Edlund's, whacked out, parody of the superhero, and it's delightful. And, Townsend Coleman, he's brilliant as the Tick. The show is wonderfully weird and chock full of absurdist humor, which is great. And what I love with the Tick is that, there's this endearing, lovable, simple-minded hero aspect to him. He's very much like if the Adam West Batman were as thick and subtle as a brick, just if his heart was in the right place like the Adam West Batman, but what if he just was not the world's greatest detective, even when logic kind of puts that in the question even by 60s Batman standards? Like, what if what if he was just nigh invulnerable and just it's like just very, very dim, but his heart was in the right place.
Plus, they had a great catchphrase.
Of course, spoon. It's delightful. It just makes everyone happy. It's like being wrapped in hugs. Spoon. Anyway, so there's just so many great memorable things about this show. I mean, for me, I always loved Chairface Chippendale as the arch nemesis of the Tick. Just the idea that you had Tony J as an astute kind of businessman with a chair for a face, and just the logic of that did not amuse me. Just how does he eat? How? It's just great. They actually called that into question once when they switched bodies. Like, I think like a Matt's like Chrome Dome. He's like, wait a minute. Well, how does this even work? Anyway,
I will say though that ever since I got into Griffin Newman's podcast, I have an even bigger appreciation for the live action series.
Well, that's what I'm getting to, Tiki. Yes.
Which one? The Fox one or the Amazon?
The recent one.
All right.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So you have a litany of silly, wonderful foes. You got, of course, a number of great episodes. I mean, the ones that kind of honestly, one of the ones that jumps to me constantly is I love the Tick versus Santa around the holiday season. It's a really great episode we covered on Christmas in July. Just love the fact that the Tick cannot bring himself to hit Santa Claus. And it's just such a delightful idea of a multiple evil Santa Claus voiced by Jim Cummings, and the Tick can't hit him, but his solution is the noogie. It's fantastic. Of course, there are other great parodies as well. Like, I mean, I think the big one is I think it's called Alone Together. It's the big Galactus parody where they have like a Galactus that literally eats planets. Like, he eats them with his mouth. He doesn't just like drain them dry. He just like takes a bite out of them. And takes a bite out of the moon at the end, which is hilarious. So what Tiki was saying, though, and I agree with him, is that ultimately the thing that holds the Tick back for me is two factors. One, I mean, deep down, I kind of missed the boat on the Tick because, again, I was going to the literal superhero shows because I had the Marvel shows and I had the DC shows, and the Tick, because of that, just kind of fell in the cracks in between. But watching it, though, it's fantastic. And again, there's the and there's also the fact there's kind of the parody nature of it all, where it's like, I kind of want like if this is really clever and everything, but I kind of want the actual, the on brand stuff. I'm not really looking for kind of the like, hey, this is kind of like, this is like the Seinfeld misbrandings that we can't clear on the air sort of thing, But more so, the media adaptations of the Tick are all great, but I think Amazon really they kind of hit a really special niche with it. So the niche with it, where all the adaptations that bring something new to the table and bring something really good. And I think the animated show definitely has something over the other two, but I mean, there's something really special about seeing the Tick, this bigger than life character, in live action, the way Peter Serafinowicz plays him, and again, Griffin Newman, what he does as Arthur. I mean, again, that dynamic's obviously represented through 3 shows, but the animated show and the Amazon show really kind of hit that super well. So they're both really great at that, but I kind of lean a little bit more towards the Amazon show, which makes me sad just thinking about it. It's not around anymore.
I still love Patrick Warburton as the Tick, though.
He is great. That's the thing. He's great as the Tick, though. Just the other stuff in that show, it's definitely reads after the first episode. They ran out of money for the budget, but it's fun though. But yes.
Okay, Jacob.
All right, my number 20 is one that was mentioned previously. I guess Magic School Bus.
Okay.
Well, since it was mentioned previously, I'll keep it brief. But this is one of my personal favorite educational shows, and because I do like the whimsical nature of combining obviously the magic of the Magic School Bus and using it as a learning tool for science. It was one of the things that we always watched in school when there was a subject to learn, in elementary school and middle school when there was something to learn. And of course, it got me into reading the books as well. So I have a lot of memories of that. Of course, the Scholastic Book Fair. I got Scholastic Book Fair and everything, which we talked about previously. Basically, a lot of good memories associated with that, and I can still remember a lot of the stuff I learned from those in the first place. So I said, even though some of the stuff, mainly the space one, might be a bit outdated considering they go to Pluto, which is still considered a planet back then, a lot of it still holds up. And that's it.
All right.
Okay, cool. Really quick, I just want to shout out Slasher Fred and Z&K channel joining us once again in the comments. Happy to have you guys. Okay, so my number 20, it's going to be yet another repeat, and also, weirdly enough, another PBS educational show. It's going to be Arthur. So y'all remember that harrowing story I told you guys about me hiding out in the bathroom for a half hour whenever the Magic School Bus would be an option at school?
Did Arthur have a similar effect on?
No, it had the opposite effect.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, Arthur was always the one where it's when it was a rainy day, I swear to God, I would always dread going to school on rainy days, and there'd be that anticipation factor of having to watch the Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
But if Arthur was on the table, basically the big 3 was Arthur, Bill Nye, and Magic School Bus. Arthur and Bill Nye, totally cool with. Bill Nye, absolutely the best option of the 3. But yeah, Arthur was it's just such a comfort watch though. And that's really what I love about it. And I feel like it's basically it's Hey Arnold for the younger crowd. And that's what makes it so great. It really does kind of teach very down-to-earth life lessons. It has a very dynamic cast, really iconic characters, of course, just a super memorable theme song. Just an all-around great show with a lot of value.
The funny thing is, my school never showed Arthur. We did have Bill Nye and Magic School Bus. I don't think we ever showed anything about Arthur.
I watched. Well, yeah, that's the thing, Jake. Think about it. Arthur always had the things in between the segments where they had and now a word from us kids. So the kid that was obviously with the Scholastic thing at play. There was always they were bringing Arthur to schools one way or another. So I would not be surprised that it made it to some schools. I can't recall for the life of me if I got Arthur or not. I watched it at home. I don't know if they played it at school. I don't think they did, but I could be wrong. Because I was watching it so often, I can't recall.
It's I really do feel like this is a California thing, because I've oftentimes said when I was in high school, 3 different teachers showed me both Monty Python and Dr. Strangelove just on the basis of it's English, it's history, it's
Peter Sellers being awesome.
right. It's and drama was the other one.
Because obviously Monty Python is steeped in historical fact.
Well, yeah, it's just the
Monty Python. Honestly, take up your that is the one that really doesn't Strangelove. I could totally see.
Oh yeah,
Strangelove. That was obviously kind of going for a parody of the times, and it has a lot of stuff to say. But
see,
yeah,
what they should have shown you is History of the World Part 1. That's what they should have shown.
Right. Okay, let's see. Z and K says my show never showed Arthur either. It was always the books, I guess, because for me at least, it was always aired after schoolish. Yeah, I like I said, guys, I really think this is probably a California thing.
Yeah,
the more I think about it.
The closest thing I had to what you had was the Magic School Bus. That they did show in school.
They showed that horrifying, like, childhood scarring VHS tape of the Inside Ralphie episode.
Yep.
Like I said, we did a Magic School Bus. Like, I don't think it was shown as often as Bill Nye, but I do remember Magic School Bus.
There was that. Then there was also that. Do you guys remember the one where I forget what it's called, but it has that intro where it's like in the Natural History Museum, and you've got like the sea, like everything flying around. You remember that?
You're talking about Magic School Bus?
No. It was like a live action like educational show from PBS.
I don't know. The only other education.
Wait, you're talking
about that show.
Are you talking about the Lions thing, the live action? Like
ZK says Discovery something. He just can't place the name. He knows what it is. Yeah,
he was talking about the.
Really, the only other educational show I watched on PBS really was Nova.
Yeah, I thought he was talking about Between the Lions.
No, I don't know. I forget what it is. If I can look up the name, I'll let you guys know.
I'm just going to throw it out there. It has no correlation with
what we're doing. It was Between the Lions. Oh, it wasn't.
No, he said it wasn't.
I'm sorry, it wasn't. My bad.
All right, hold on. Let me.
Anyway.
PBS.
I'm sorry.
Okay, while we're on a tangent, I'm just going to shout out a random the PBS show name because I liked it.
Sure.
George Shrinks. Okay, we're good.
Okay, all right. Can let's move on to number 19.
Delightful show. Okay, number 19.
Okay, there's something called Discovering Your Roots.
That sound right?
Something with Discovery. That might be right.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's not dwell on it, guys. It's fine.
All right. Okay, number 19. Courage the Cowardly Dog.
At 19?
Yep, at 19.
All right, it's fair. It's fair.
Hey, Dragon, you got on my case for Superman being at 20.
You know, I could have done this out of revenge. There's also
all right, guys. It's fine. It's fine.
These
are all our opinions.
I know. I'm just saying too. So let me rephrase what Dragon did when I did 23. What?
Eyewitness. Yes, that's it. Z and K. Thank you. Eyewitness.
PBS Eyewitness. Right.
All right. Mystery solved. Thank God.
Of course, Z and K.
Yeah.
All right.
So, in actuality here, so here's the thing. With Courage, though, it was really this list is really hard to part two of this list is really hard to construct because a lot of these are like the things that very easily. I mean, there's so much reverence for any of these. They really could have gone like in the number 10 spot on the number 1 list or something. I mean, they're all real, on the ultimate installment of what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, Courage though for me, it's a very memorable gimmick. Of course, Little Pink Cowardly Dog just reluctantly has to brave a scary and dire situation every week. And here's the thing. Deep down, the reason Courage is not higher for me personally is not that it's not amazing, because we know it is, but honestly, I think deep down it's because I'm not a horror guy. Now, again, this is just me speaking to kind of like Mr. I'm runs to the bathroom when the Magic School Bus comes on. But it's, I think it's that deep down. Obviously, Courage is not like, Scarry for Life scary per se. I mean, if you think about the heady implications, then sure. But for me, it was that, it was, I don't know, I just wasn't really a horror guy. Like, I want to watch a show that's gonna scare me, but I watched every episode though. But it just, it took time for me to really love and appreciate and really kind of like all those rewatches of Courage for it to really sink in. Like, oh man, I love how we're telling these stories. I love, for example, as we all know, I adore the Snowman. The Snowman's a big benchmark with Courage. I love a Sean Connery Snowman, but here's the not just a Sean Connery Snowman, a Sean Connery Snowman with pathos. The idea that this Snowman, his whole story is that, I mean, the return of the Snowman, more accurately. The first one's like, okay, it's a creepy snowman, kind of like a Yeti of sorts for our purposes here. But the fact that the snowman comes back and he's alone and he wants a family of some sort because his has kind of died off because of the ozone layer and everything, because of the heat waves and such. So things like that with Courage really always stuck out to me. Like, of course, we have like the fun stuff like Scheffler, who also not just voices the snowman but cats. And for me, the best thing Courage ever done, oddly enough, was essentially the last episode. The last episodes. I think Perfect and Remembrance of Courage Class were the last ones. Is that right, Tiki?
Yeah.
It was Remembrance, then Perfect.
Well, yeah, I'm saying both of those episodes were like in the last one, though. But yeah. That's what I'm saying. They really hit it out of the ballpark with those last episodes, and it always left like an impression. Though I will admit, though, here's the stuff that did disturb me from Courage, though, as a kid. It still does, very much so. The flan guy still creeps me out.
Oh yeah,
There's just something not right about that flan guy.
Flan Tessie Flan.
That guy's creepy.
I know it's really basic, but I still like Fred to this day. Still freaks me out.
No, I love Fred's style though, man. That guy just rolls in. It was always like oddly intimidating. We shaving that pancake.
It's like one of the. It's like one of. I mean, I have my own stuff to say about this show later on, but the one that I just immediately remembered was the one with the goose god that fell in love with Muriel and then went off with Eustace's truck at the end.
So,
oh my god.
Perhaps a flag to plant with Courage, and another reason Courage. I think ultimately this is not like a good barometer, because my point is you could say this about almost any cartoon with very few exceptions, is that Courage kind of falls into the thing a lot of cartoons fall into, where ultimately when you have a show with kind of the formulaic nature of cartoons, ultimately you have this thing where, okay, so it's pretty much, with very few exceptions, the same thing happens with the exception of my favorite episode of Courage, probably my favorite episode of Courage, Heads of Beef. Same thing happens every week on Courage. Something scary happens, he freaks out, no one's listening to him. It's almost like the Michigan J. Frog thing practically, and ultimately the dog has to save the owners. And Courage, the show's response to this sort of thing, like, how do we not just do the same thing every week? Well, we got to spice it up and go kind of headier with like how scary something is, or go bigger in this case. And then we have like the bright spots in which you have stuff like the Hunchback of Nowhere or the Scarecrow, where we have like some extra pathos added to those episodes, which I live for those moments. But again, just with cartoons that you have like a gimmick at play, or you have like a formulaic nature, which certain things happen. And of course, any cartoon, certain episodes are going to grab you more than others, and Courage, so I can't really say there's like a miss with Courage, but I can say some episodes I think grab you more, like work better in concept than they did in execution. Like, hey, Courage playing dodgeball with his bad guys. In concept, that's great. When you think about it too much, like, would this really happen though? We really go to these lengths?
Yeah, it's usually not considered to be a very good episode, regardless.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I think it's the idea, like, hey, we're doing a big team-up episode, and it's like, no, because they're playing dodgeball, because cats like sports, okay, and then, well, I don't know. And for example, I don't think anyone really likes the Al Capone foot episode. The Al Capone foot was always a weird idea.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that episode.
Really? You like the Al Capone foot guy?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. He's like, yeah, see, we got a fungus, see?
Okay. All right, fair enough. Well, there you go.
All right, just going to shout out Slasher Fred. I very, very much enjoy Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa. It's probably the best Ninja Turtles knockoff cartoon. Okay. Jacob, what's your number 19?
I'm just saying, speaking of Fred. Oh, God. All right, my number 19 is Spider-Man, the animated series. God, Dragon.
Go on. Just tell them why.
Oh, God.
Obviously, I'm going to say up front, this is not my favorite Spider-Man animated series. Like,
that's fair. Yeah, you got Spectacular. So.
Spectacular Spider-Man is amazing. It's fun to use another Spider-Man adjective. Amazing.
Yeah.
But this series had definitely struck a good chord for the 90s. Like, good chord for the 90s, being actually a very good and basically tone-setting adaptation of Spider-Man, influencing basically a lot of the movies and television series going forward with the stuff it introduced and the way it told the story. Like, yes, the animation wasn't very good, and it's Plus, it does have some meme-worthy moments, including the shocker.
I'll chase you to the ends of the earth.
Which I will point out does make sense in context.
Oh, of course it does.
But out of context, it is admittedly funny.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, but I did have to. But I just really like the series, and I think I ranked it higher than say like Superman because I have more of a memory watching it as a kid, like watching reruns of it on Jetix and stuff like that. I don't think I ever caught Superman. I don't think Superman was even on that. I could be mistaken, but I don't remember what.
I mean, they added it on there, so I don't know when, but it was on there too. Yeah.
Because I definitely remember watching Batman the Animated Series on Jetix, but I don't think I ever caught Superman.
No, they put it on there.
But yeah, but as for Spider-Man, I do remember I have a bit of a more memory watching that. And I think it, and I just have more nostalgia, and I really enjoy watching it more. It's like, to give credit to Superman the Animated Series, I haven't fully completed watching it yet. So who knows? Maybe if I finish watching it and rewatch Spider-Man, my taste may change. But I still think Christopher Daniel Barnes makes a great Spider-Man. Basically, Roscoe Brown makes a great Kingpin, probably the second behind Vincent D'Onofrio. That I've seen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and until we got Spectacular years later, it was like one of the best versions to see Spider-Man, at least on television. So, but if you had to choose between this and Spectacular, go watch Spectacular.
Okay. My number 19, it's this is a really interesting one. It's definitely one of the most unique shows that's in the roster. And I had a hard time ranking it. Like, it was honestly, like, it was probably never going to make the top 10, but I had a hard time kind of placing it within this tier. But I went with 19, so I'm going to go with Kablam. And yeah, like I said, just a very, very unique show. I really, really respect it. I think some of it is a bit dated. Obviously, like some of Angela Anaconda is just a horrid.
Well, it was like a pilot, though. It wasn't like the whole show had an Angela Anaconda thing all the time. It was like,
No, I know, but still, it was. I'm just saying, it was hit or miss. You obviously had the go-tos, but then you also had stuff that was not so great. But that was kind of the fun of it, though. I think it's really interesting. I definitely think it kind of has the same sort of DNA as like stuff like What a Cartoon or Oh Yeah cartoons, where essentially it is kind of a pilot factory in a certain extent. But then, obviously it's got that kind of anthology quality, the hosts and kind of your, the Action League Nows and Prometheus and Bob's and Life with Loopies, where, it's more of a standby of the actual programming. So I will say, I think some of the stuff doesn't quite hold up. I think if you actually go back and watch some Action League Now stuff, some of it is funny, but I think a lot of it is very much just kind of like we were kids, and it was it was written towards, it's very childish, juvenile kind of humor, but it's clever. It was I really appreciate how Kablam is very mixed media too. It's one of the more ambitious of the Nicktoons while still kind of being a pilot factory. But the fact that it still kind of has the feeling of the hit or miss nature of the pilot stuff, where I don't know, it's a very interesting show. I had a hard time ranking it, and I'm still not quite sure if I ranked it a little too low. So, all right, we'll go ahead and jump it right back to Dragon for number 18.
Animaniacs.
All right.
So, Animaniacs, clearly the flagship Amblin show. They got a resurgence for a reason. Apparently, I think it's entering its last season, by the way, for its resurgence, I think. Anyway, so yeah, it's... Sorry. Yeah, so it's slapstick comedy at its finest. You have like it's kind of the '90s equivalent to Looney Tunes in some respects. It's with kind of an artfulness applied to the slapstick, much like Looney Tunes did. It's yeah, it's very clever celebrity parodies. Of course, with the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister Dot. Getting into trouble on the back studio lot, which is always such a great setting. Just the fact to be running the studio lot, which I think we've all it's how Spielberg broke into the business. So I wonder how much of that was like, okay, how are we going to sell Steven on this? Oh, I know. Let's reach right back into his past. Like, what did he found his whole career on? He was walking to the Universal lot. Let's do Warner Brothers. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the music's great. Of course, a lot of so many of the original songs, most of them educational songs, which again still are hummed to this day. It's the risk of the Animaniacs for me, and again, another thing with cartoons, just kind of since we're kind of breaching kind of so many different varieties and such here, just kind of seeing certain patterns that emerge within these shows. There is a risk with the Animaniacs where certain segments are great, they work great, they're wonderful, and certain segments I think are subjective over time, or at least are very much in the subjective standpoint. Where it's like, for example, Pinky and the Brain, always the standout, so wonderful, got a spin off, and that's the reason we did not add it to the master list, by the way, or at least did we? I forget if we added or not. All I know is I didn't put it on my list because I put it in here. But yeah, it's. Point of view, Pinky and the Brain was great in a standout, got a spinoff for a reason. Where this is, it's you have other ones like the Candle. I never got into the Candle. Like the little candle was there during all the big historical moments in history. It was like, yeah, it's a little much. It's like, But again, that's just taste. Maybe someone likes it. Maybe I don't. You have like Chicken Boo, which I know polarized people. I thought Chicken Boo was pretty funny.
I really like Chicken Boo too.
Chicken Boo is funny, but I think we went to the well with it maybe a little too often. But it was great.
It's like Chicken Boo was fun. I just never really cared for Kitty Kaboom.
I think Katie Kaboom was yet another
fair.
one.
That's
Right?
fair.
I think if Katie Boom was more of a rare occasion, it'd be funnier. But it just feels like we kept doing it because we need to fill time. Where ultimately, when you watch the Animaniacs, as a kid, the thing I had was, hey, I'm going to watch the Animaniacs. Guess what? I know ultimately as a kid it was kind of misbranding on my part, but I was thinking the Animaniacs purely were the Warner Brothers and the Warner sisters. Like, I want more of the Warners. We didn't get always the Warners. We had all these segments in which you kind of grew to love them. Like, for example, Mindy and Buttons. It's funny. But I don't know. I think over time it kind of waned on me. It's like, yeah, it's just that one to me is
I
more.
honestly think the same thing could be said about the Bucky, or
So, what?
I'm sorry, the squirrel.
Slappy Squirrel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not her, but the nephew who I'm blanking on the name of. I'm sorry.
Skippy.
Skippy, yeah. Like obviously the Bumby's mom stuff is iconic, but it kind of get grating after a while if you're just doing that same beat over and over again.
That's fair.
Yeah, so Z&K says, oh, wait, the candle was a series. I could have sworn, Z&K, I'm pretty sure it was, I could have sworn that candle came back a number of times.
The only one I remember is from the Declaration of Independence one.
Yeah, that's the.
I remember like the Good Idea, Bad Idea, Rita and Runt, obviously the Warners, all kinds of stuff.
Good Idea, Bad Idea is one they should have done more of.
Yeah. Now, Z&K, I won't lie. There's a chance I might be misremembering the candle, but all I remember is the candle really just never struck with me. But yet, you keep seeing every time they go to the Animaniacs shorts, the candle keeps coming. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But I could have sworn they brought him back at least more than once. But I couldn't.
It would be kind of funny if it was literally only one and you remember it that much.
That's the thing. I remember because I never cared for it. I was like, man, I don't like this. This candle thing's boring me, man. It's just, just the candle reading the Declaration of Independence. This is a good idea. Well, yes, it's a good idea. I don't get dedicated cartoon to knowing it's a good idea. Anyway.
All right.
Regardless, you have other things, like, of course, like other characters as well. Like Dr. Scratch's Tip was always great. This Rob Paulson is just this beleaguered doctor. He was kind of essentially the papa of the Warners. Of course, of the Warners, my favorite was always Yakko. I love Yakko. He's the wisecracker. He's kind of the straight man. He's the butt out, the kind of the Costello. He's the Mo of the Three Stooges. But yeah.
Except of course Rob Paulson.
Of course, yes. And of course, we introduced old Paul Rugg there, which of course will definitely bleed into some other things we're going to be talking about later. But Animaniacs was great. Animaniacs made you feel like you got your money's worth, which is always really cool. So yeah.
All right, Jacob.
All right. Kind of a coincidence here. I have another Spielberg show here.
Oh no.
And Dragon, you're not gonna like this, and it does.
No.
And it does have and it's a Paul Rugg staple, Freakazoid.
Oh God.
Oh God, he muted himself.
Oh God.
Yes, my number 18 pick is Freakazoid.
Dragon, I have it a lot higher. It's in my top 10.
Dragon.
All right, it's fine. You don't have to justify yourself, Jacob. Just tell us why you like it.
I know. I just really like Freakazoid. I mean, it's one I never really watched as much as I don't have as much nostalgia for it as a kid as I do with these other ones. And even after rewatching it, I do find a lot of it funny. It just never grabbed my attention like the other ones did. And he said, "Don't get me wrong, it's freaking hilarious, and that's why it's ranked as high as it is. But I just have more fondness for especially the other Spielberg ambulance shows. I guess those kind of hit my funny bone better. And as far as superhero shows go, it's like it is I think other shows pulled it off better, and even other parodies were better, if you ask me. But don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed this series and would love to watch more of it. But I'm not gonna I couldn't find any place to put it higher than 18. It's like I said, don't get me wrong. I love all the segments. I like, of course, Paul Rugg is fantastic as Freakazoid. Of course, we have the wonderful Ed Asner as the policeman who even got the Warners to shout in a comic book strip once. Like, hey, cut it out. Basically, it's a memorable show, and I do remember watching it briefly, but it just never caught on to me until I was older, and I can't really put it any higher than that.
Oh man. Oh Jesus. All right. I'm just gonna move on. To the next one.
The moment he put Animaniacs there, I was like, oh no.
Oh God. All right. My number 18 is actually one of the big surprises that I had kind of revisiting everything. It kept kind of getting bumped up because I kept having fun, like, oh yeah, that really was a clever show that no one really talks about all that much, and it has a really clever original premise to it. And that's going to be I Am Weasel.
Really?
I think I'm probably the only one of the three of us to put it on the list.
Well, I had to make a choice between Cow and Chicken and I Am Weasel because there's only 30 spots, but that's a good quick pick to get.
Well, I have both.
I didn't put either on my list, but I have to choose. I probably would have gone with I Am Weasel.
Well, that's funny. I like Dragon chose one. Jacob has neither, and I put both on.
Well, if I recall, and the main reason I went with it was, if I recall, didn't we see the I Am Weasel within Cow and Chicken, which then got a spinoff? Isn't that how it went?
Yeah, that's kind of how it worked. Yeah, but what I really like about I Am Weasel is I really do like the premise, and I think it works really well for an animated show. And I also think that it's one of those shows where when you watch it as a kid, you don't really get it. Like Cow and Chicken is obviously the more broad, the more accessible cartoon as a kid. But I got to tell you, man, watching it as an adult and kind of thinking about it as an adult, I really think it was one of the more clever social satires that Cartoon Network ever did. Just kind of the whole thing about Weasel being this just super upstanding overachiever, and Baboon being like kind of like the pathetic everyman character who was just very irrational and angry, and you want to root for him, but at the same time, you know, he always causes his own downfalls, and you want to cheer against Weasel because he's just everything goes right for him, but he's such a nice guy though. And I really think that I Am Weasel, it taps into something with our culture. I think maybe maybe I'm looking a little bit too deeply into it, but I really feel like it taps into something about the nature of the everyman and how the everyman does get stepped on. And yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting kind of social satire in that regard. I appreciate it a lot. I will admit, I went back and watched a couple episodes. I didn't go back and like check out the whole series. I didn't really have time to. But what I saw really held up. I really think that this is one of the more adult shows that Cartoon Network did as far as the actual tone of it. All right. We are all I Am Weasel plus IR Baboon.
How great is Michael Dorn as Weasel? He's wonderful.
He's great. Yeah, yeah.
His deep voice really suits Weasel pretty well.
This is the fact that it's like this little creature and has like this big booming voice.
I love it. I love the designs too. Just I don't know, just the contrast between the two of them. I think it's the angry Beavers, kind of like, like the cool, calm, collected guy and the loose cannon.
But played opposites
but it's played in a more kind of realistic, sort of real kind of context.
I actually started watching Angry Beavers recently.
Yeah,
I like it so far.
Okay, so we avoided a nuclear meltdown. Let's move on to number 17, Dragon.
Oh God.
Ed and Eddy.
All right, that's fair.
So Ed and Eddy has such a relatable appeal to it. I feel, because the idea is you have this enterprising trio of scam artists, but they're kids. And what's so great about Ed and Eddy to me is I think the limited landscape with the location of the cul-de-sac, the suburban neighborhood. It's just it's kind of like warped Canadian Peanuts to a degree, Because think about the eras of cartoons that we have here. Where if we use Peanuts as like a metric of sorts, you have Arthur, which is kind of like a PBS kind of way of getting to the Peanuts, and you have Hey Arnold, which is kind of the '90s kind of like modernized version of the Peanuts with more depth applied to them. And then you have your offshoots here, like kind of Ed and Eddy, which is kind of like the Canadian scam art. I use the Peanuts comparison not because we had necessarily Charlie Brown in this show, but for the fact of you have very memorable characters in a very kind of like isolated location, which we don't go all over the place with the Peanuts. We go to the same locations every time. Occasionally the school, usually the wall, then the house interior. That's usually where we go, and the baseball field. But anyway, I don't want to get down Peanut semantics. Regardless, the characters are memorable. Because again, these kids, and we see them being scammed all the time. There's only so many characters they can build for this show. And like the Peanuts, we never see the adults, but they're a looming presence, though.
Oh yeah.
We don't do it a wah 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 wah, but next best thing.
The most we see is like an arm here and something else there.
Did we even think about it? Jacob, think hard now. Did we ever get the arm?
Well, yeah, because there's like one time when during the schools, and like when they went to school and when their grade, when like Ed's and Eddy's grades were returned, we actually saw their parents grabbing them off screen and dragging them away.
Right, good point. Yes. So speaking of which, speaking of which, that's thing. For me, with Ed and Eddy, I think the original stuff. I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but just kind of it's the way it is. It's kind of like the old adage of the sequel's rarely ever better than the original. In application of the cartoons here, it's very much like the later seasons. Usually, there's a jump the shark moment in terms of a retooling or sometimes it's because of network notes or a change in network or a revamp or all sorts of stuff. It's usually it's the common association that change is bad, which sometimes is the case, sometimes not the case. In this case, when the biggest mistake they ever made with Ed and Eddy, to me, I'm not saying these episodes are unwatchable or they're necessarily terrible, but it was just not the same, and the show was different, and not even just visually, but just in the series Bible, one could say something was off. Them going to school, I think, puts them in a box they should not have been. They should not have been put in. Kind of takes them out of the sandbox of what we were familiar with, and puts them in well, now they're at school, and you have a location where now adults are in the frame, but we're not seeing them, and now it's far more noticeable than the threat of looming adults. I don't know. I never liked it when they went to school. But of course, in general, though, I love the homemade scams, which would impress us one slipping Jimmy if only they were successful. I love Double D. Double D basically being kind of the Frasier-esque character of the Eds. the most Niles Crane-esque Ed amongst them. And of course, I mean, the Jawbreaker and the imagination at play. You got a lot of really clever conceits with Ed and Eddy. The fact that sometimes like, their imaginations would get the best of them, they would kind of play around like kids, and there was something like some very relatable and authentic there. I mean, my some of my favorites. I think the headiest episode from Ed and Eddy for me was Ed's Nightmare. I always loved the way they played that. I loved Ed having this terrifying, and I love it was the most terrifying animated sequence on Ed and Eddy, quite possibly, where he imagines that Johnny is his mother. It was like the first time we ever, in theory, would have seen an adult on the show. And of course, what's the first thing you see? It's Johnny. And he's like, seriously, rewatch that sequence, folks. See how terrifying it is. And I love the vulnerability and the support that he's getting from his friends in this endeavor, just seeing how problematic it is and helping him work through this problem. That's great. And of course, one of the great episodes too is the Odyssey. I think it's called like Rainfall or something, but it's Rain something or like Rain and Ed because they always have the word Ed into the title. The episode where the candy store is giving away Jawbreakers for free, but they only have 10 minutes. So essentially, they have the length of the episode to get there. And it's an odyssey getting there, and like all the forces and the fates are conspiring against them. And there's like the climax of this episode is gobsmackingly wonderful. Just a sea of chickens, and Eddy has to make a choice: the candy or his friends. And well, let's just say you chose poorly. So yeah, it's great. And of course, the rare thing any cartoon gets: got the big picture show, got a finale. How nice.
All right, Jacob.
Yeah.
Number 17, Tailspin.
Okay.
That's another. It is kind of a repeat. I won't go into like the details about it too much, but it's like this is one thing I do remember catching a little later after its initial airing, but one I do enjoy. And again, it was probably one of the ones I actually watched before The Jungle Book. Funnily enough. But like I always loved. I was always interested in I always like enjoyed like it was like an action adventure like film serial old school kind of thing, and I was kind of interested in that even as a kid. And just like seeing these planes like go at each other, sky pirates, like Don Carnage, like one of Jim Cummings' funniest performances. Don Carnage, that kind of sticks with you. Like sure, some of the characters are a bit great, might be a bit here and there, but overall, I think the series just like balances the tones quite well. Like it manages to be a great action adventure series, and also manages to be a fun comedy as well. Plus, it manages to be a great homage to film serials, and as Tiki pointed out, probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something along those lines. So it's like, I think it was a great adventure like that for kids, and I have to say I remember having a lot of fun watching. Even back then, I still think a lot of it holds up. All right, I guess Tiki. Then, if you don't have you guys anything to say, then
we already talked. Well, I think Tiki already talked about Tailspin. And
all right.
Yeah, sorry, Jacob. I was actually transitioning out of it, and I realized my mic was muted because I had to sneeze. My bad. Didn't mean to leave you hanging there. Anyways, my number 17 is, I'm not quite sure if this is controversial, but it's the lowest. I'm pretty sure all three of us have it on our list. I'd be surprised if we didn't, and this is the lowest of the three of us. But my number 17 is going to be Dexter's Lab.
Wow.
Oh my God, Dragon. Really that bad?
No, I mean, it's not bad. It's just surprising.
All right. Yeah, it's another tricky one. I think obviously, I try not to take this into account too much because obviously we're not taking seasonal rot into account with SpongeBob, and the bad seasons did happen in the 2000s, but it's still I can't think about Dexter and not think about the bad seasons. I assume it was just the one bad season, right?
What's the name, Jacob? What was the breakdown again? Wasn't it like the fourth season, or did the fourth season actually get broken?
I want to say it was just the fourth season that was just really different.
Well, basically, you mean since the revamp.
But basically, they did 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Tartakovsky. Then Tartakovsky did the movie, which was intended to be the season finale. Tartakovsky moved on to make Samurai Jack, which wasn't in the 2000s, so it didn't make this list. Otherwise, it'd probably be high on all of our lists.
Right.
Yeah.
But and then a new creative team took over for season 3 and 4.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so the point it was 3 and 4. 3 and 4 was the revamp. Then,
so
Tiki, is that what you're thinking?
It's kind of like a similar thing to SpongeBob, although I think, as much as I do really, really like Dexter's Lab, I like it a lot. It's not as iconic as SpongeBob. It's iconic in a certain extent. I definitely agree with C&K that someone was lost with the 3-episode format. I really did. I think this show had I Am Weasel. I actually think works better as a standalone thing, whereas when it was kind of like put in the middle of Cow and Chicken episodes, it was kind of like, because Cow and Chicken is an aggressively juvenile show, and I Am Weasel, as I said, is kind of like a more thoughtful kind of social commentary, social satire kind of show. So I don't necessarily think it really worked, but I think the stuff that they have with Dexter, of course, obviously the oh God, I'm sorry, Jack. What's the Justice League parody? I feel stupid that I can't think of it.
It's well, I know the members of that.
I know the members of it too. That's the thing. There's Major Glory. There's Valhalla.
Justice Friends. It was Justice Friends.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I felt stupid for not thinking that. Okay,
I was thinking, here's the thing, because I was initially thinking Action League, and I was like, no, that's not it. It's Justice Friends.
So Justice Friends, Dial M for Monkey. I think those things work a lot better in the same tone as Dexter, and obviously the really appealing thing with Dexter is kind of like the hyper imaginative setting. I really do think it's one of the best settings of any animated show, and that makes it go a long way, because unfortunately I do think it has a similar problem to a lot of the Cartoon Network shows, where at the end of the day it is kind of like the same premise of episode kind of over and over again, with Dee Dee getting into the laboratory and Dexter having to evade her. And, obviously there's certain other elements, like Mandark, of course, but don't even start, Jacob. Oh, God, that voice actor. I'm just going to do this voice forever for every movie that I pop up in.
Well, again, Tiki, there are voice don't do basically cast with voices with character.
I think that actually might be his natural voice.
That's his natural. Yes.
No, I'm sure it is. I'm sorry. I don't mean to
play it up a little bit. Yeah, don't.
Oh yeah, Jeff Bennett doing his best. I still think that this is my go-to Jeff Bennett performance for me. Dexter's so yeah, I don't know. I might be underselling it a little bit, but like I said, I just think that kind of the fact that the plot lines did tend to blur together for me a little bit. And it definitely was a show much like Rugrats, where the early seasons were golden, but then it kind of lost its magic after a while.
I actually started watching Rugrats too.
But still, it's very much like Rugrats in the sense that it's kind of like the thing on the Cartoon Network side that kind of launched the creator-driven era of that network.
And of course, as we all know, Tartakovsky went on to do many great things.
Of course. All right, let's jump right ahead to number 16. What do you got, Dragon?
Rugrats.
Rugrats. Okay.
Funny enough.
So, it's funny. Yeah. So, Rugrats, one of the pillars of Nickelodeon, unequivocally. Inventive concept with shifting the perspective to the perspective of infants. Just really clever idea. It's cute. It's funny. At times, a lot of heart. I mean, for example, the friendship of Tommy and Chucky, and of course, majorly, the father-son dynamic of Chucky and Chaz Finster. It's wonderful. The Mother's Day episode, there's not a dry eye in the house, But yeah, it's I mean, the original classic Rugrats just has a litany of great episodes, unequivocally. I mean, honestly, pre-Dill was a litany of great episodes. I mean, for me, I can spend here listing so many episodes, but I mean, for me, a few that jumped to mind when I think of like some of the best times watching Rugrats. I'm thinking like Drew Pickles having that nightmare in which he is taken to court by Angelica, doing one of those like kind of celebrity kid things where they try and basically divorce their parents in court. Essentially, like a self guardianship sort of thing. I forget what the actual term is at the moment, but yeah, they're trying to So you have that. So basically, Drew Pickles on trial by his child. It's hysterical. Again, we do so many kind of genre. There's so much genre love shown in the Rugrats. We do all the classics, but again, through kind of the babies, imagined versions of things like the Western. I love the Western. I love just kind of the idea of like instead of a gunslinger, it's a gumslinger. This little girl keeps popping using these giant bubblegum balloons and is wreaking havoc, being a bully, and we have that kind of thing going on. That's great. Them going mini golfing, the Grand Canyon. Honestly, I have so much nostalgia for the VHS tapes of the vacations. You had the Grand Canyon, and you had Vegas Vacation, which we should do, by the way, at some point.
Greg and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
At some point, we gotta do that Vegas Vacation.
Absolutely. We should honestly do like a Rugrats vacation theme month if there's enough episodes to do that.
I mean, we have 2. I gotta see if we have any more. But
like go to Paris count in that?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Well, we've already talked about Paris a couple times.
That's the thing. So I don't know if we can count that.
And counting the genres things, like I never watched.
Honestly, though, if we did just a Nicktoon theme parks thing, we could easily fill that because we have the Hey Arnold episode with the roller coaster. There's a couple Rocket Power episodes that feature roller coasters.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyways,
and I was young. I never watched the show when I was younger, but even I couldn't escape the power of Reptar.
Speaking,
oh my God, Reptar is such a fucking icon.
Of course, not just the Halloween episode. We have like the Toy Store episode, which I forget if Reptar appears as the other force in this, but you have like the Morg wants to eat. You have like that this gorilla that time travels. Which is hilarious. Anyway, so I love Lou Pickles. Again, there's a whole lot of great stuff in the Rugrats in which it's just seeing it from a different perspective is just really fascinating. And I will say this: the main reason Rugrats is not higher on my list because I have so much love and nostalgia for the Rugrats. But by the same token, when I go back to that nostalgia, things don't hold up all the time and becomes really apparent. And when I say apparent, I mean a parent. And that parent is Dee Dee Pickles.
Oh, God.
I detest Dee Dee Pickles. I hate that woman. I just utterly despise her, frankly. I really don't like her.
What's wrong with Dee Dee?
Dee Dee Pickles.
He has a history with Dee Dee Dragon.
It's just every time.
Jacob.
It's just every time I watch the Rugrats, you have this thing where you have the things that the show it's kind of a miracle exception. Okay, the parents have to be neglectful so the babies can get into mischief. Okay, but to this degree of like these kids are literally almost dying every episode. If any social worker came by during an episode of Rugrats, they'd be going to jail. Dee Dee Pickles thinks that she's on top of things, and she's very, very hypocritical. She's like always quoting Dr. Lipschitz with the Tony J character, Dr. Lipschitz. Love him, by the way. He's great because he knows he's a scam artist, by the way, and that's hysterical. But regardless, just the fact that Dee Dee is just I don't know. She acts very. I don't know. There's a lot of hypocrisy with Dee Dee Pickles. I don't care for, and then she's really oblivious, and I don't know. It's really annoying. Design's not even that great too.
I actually just kind of realized Tiki's pick and then your pick both have Dee Dee in them.
What?
Yeah, we both have Dee Dee's.
Oh, right. No, I get it. Dee Dee spelled differently. Yes. Anyway, so point being, with the Rugrats as well, it's when you go back again, Dill is a transition point where you have the Rugrats movie, and then you have like, hey, there's Dill, and Dill's kind of a cash-in. We're okay, we just wanted to cash in. We're stuck with, the show's still on, we're stuck with this baby, so we're going to add him into the mix, even though we don't really have much to say on him, because our whole formula is babies that can talk, but no one understands them. So now we have an infant baby that no one can understand, and basically is an encumbrance to our baby cast. It's like, yeah, this is basically watered down the conflict from the movie. That's essentially what we've done. And then of course things it should have ended at Rugrats in Paris because basically the Dill episodes are passable, and then it's like, okay, now we've done the big crescendo, and now we've uprooted our status quo. And basically, after Paris, it's like it's the bigger than God years for the Rugrats in terms of popularity and how marketable the Rugrats had become. And then, of course, ultimately waning popularity because, hey, guess what? It's not as good as it used to be. It's just we've run out of all the good ideas. Like now there's a sibling. We already did that with the baby. Now there is a foreign sibling. Now there is the adopted sibling. And maybe Angelica's going to preschool or something. Okay, and then they're gonna be grown up because why care about anything anymore?
Not to mention the crossover with the Wild Thornberries.
Yes, because let's just have them all meet up. Anyway. So again, there's just kind of that honestly hurts the Rugrats in the long run for me. Where it's like, yeah, you go back, certain things don't hold up, despite make as many awesome chocolate pudding gags as you would like. Show me how awesome Lou Pickles is. The 15 miles, as great as that is, the back half of the Rugrats does do some damage, I'm afraid. But it's wonderful though. Again, staple of Nickelodeon would not be what it is without what the Rugrats did for them in the first place. A lot of gratitude to what the Rugrats did ultimately, and still does when you watch the good years.
All right, Jacob.
All right, my next pick is actually another Spielberg cartoon. To give its full title, Tiny Toon Adventures.
Mm.
This is another one I kind of didn't grow up, didn't watch when I was younger, but I do remember it, watching it when I was a bit younger, and rewatching it, I still think a lot of it holds up. Back then, it's like it's ranked a little bit higher than Freakazoid. I'm sorry, Dragon, to bring that up again, but
I just want to say one thing, just as kind of like a spiteful, just mini spite. In Freakazoid, you had the other shows that were in contention for being Spielberg's favorite. And of those three shows, you had Pinky and the Brain, you had Animaniacs, you had Freakazoid. You'll notice who was missing. I'm sorry, Jacob, go on with your point.
Oh my God.
and remember, Steven didn't know who any of them were.
True.
He's like, who are you people?
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a good point. Tiny Toons did win the Emmy, so there you go. Point redacted. Go on.
All right.
Anyways, I really enjoy Tiny Toons because Tiny Toon Adventures, or what's called Tiny Toons, mainly because it is like kind of like a throwback. It's a throwback to, it's just like even more of a throwback to classic Looney Tunes in a way.
They actually appear in the show.
Yeah, literally, they appear that they're the Tiny Toons instructors at Acme University. It's like, of course, you have the great relationship between Buster and Babs. Bunny, no relation. You have all
until now.
Apparently, it's fine, but we'll see how that plays out in the new reboot. But that's besides the point. That's just it. It basically distills a lot of it, but a lot of what made Looney Tunes great and actually modernizes it in a very fun, unique way. But basically, could they be considered as like just child versions of Looney Tunes? Yes, and obviously Chuck Jones didn't think very highly of it either. Yeah, very highly of it, as some of you are probably well aware. But despite all that, you actually did see a bunch of character development. He had a lot of fantastic humor that holds up even to this day. Granted, some of it doesn't. Some of it was kind of grating even back then. And of course, Dragon, how dare you disparage Bat Duck?
Who's disparaging Bat Duck?
You're making fun of it. You're making fun of it earlier. It's like who was invited to Spielberg?
Oh yeah, correlates specifically to Bat Duck.
I know. I'm just yanking your chain.
Yeah.
Of course, like I said, it has a lot of great stuff to add to it. I think it was a good entry point for Spielberg and Tom Ruegger to basically show what they could do and do at Warner Brothers. And it led to many great things between the two of them. Obviously had great music, great songs, great live orchestra. The animation was always bright and vibrant and well fluid. Basically, it's a treat to look at and to listen to, and a lot of the writing still lands, is solid, even to this day. And of course, How I Met Your Vacation, fun piece. All right, and I'm done with that one.
Okay. Number 16. It's interesting because we've talked Rugrats, we've talked Dexter's Lab. Let's go ahead and throw in another kind of cornerstone of creator-driven content in the 90s. My number 16 is Doug. And yeah, honestly, this is another one where, like, as I was writing it, it was kind of a surprise just how high I was putting it. But at the end of the day, I really do dig this show's vibe. I really do. I think it's just got a super imaginative, like, I love the combination of how down to earth and just chill the general concept of Doug is versus how very, very creative some of the stuff in it is. Like the Danger Rex and Smash Adam stuff. Oh man, I love it. I honestly love the Danger Rex and Smash Adam stuff a lot more than I like Quail Man. Quail Man's fine. Quail Man's cool. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. There's just something about the Indiana Jones and James Bond parodies that just really fit like a glove into this show. So yeah, I really dig the how it would kind of go into the fantasies and stuff like that. I really think it's aged very well as far as I think it's one of the best shows to really illustrate what it's actually like to kind of daydream as a kid. And I don't know, it's just got this really, really comforting vibe to me. It's almost like going back and watching Doug almost kind of feels like going back to a simpler time. It really does have that sort of like comfort food quality to me. And obviously, like I said, it is a big cornerstone. It was one of the big three to originally air on Nickelodeon, so it's got a big legacy factor there. And I mean, it did have some super dark episodes. I mean, Dragon, you remember how dark that Christmas episode was? My God.
Yeah, we almost put Porkchop on a death row.
Oh my, Jacob, did you ever see that one?
I haven't watched any Doug, unfortunately.
Oh man, it is it's harsh. Like it is a harshly dark Christmas special.
Yep.
But it's still just I don't know. I just feel like all the characters just really fit. So it's very much a prototypical Hey Arnold, right? Like Skeeter is a proto Gerald. Bebe Bluff is a proto Rhonda.
Yeah, Rhonda Wellington Lloyd.
Yeah, exactly. It's just all these characters just kind of course, Roger Klutz, not nearly as endearing as not nearly as endearing as or three-dimensional as Harold, but still, like Roger was kind of like one of those bullies where it's like he was a prick, but you could tell there was something going on there.
Is there a prototypical stoop kid?
Is there? I don't know.
What?
Well, I was just being a smartass, but
yeah, it's a well.
You know who I really didn't like though?
Yeah,
Chalky.
Wait, who?
Chalky.
You gotta remind me about Chalky too.
Chalky is the jock.
Oh,
Chalky sucked.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
I'm being too harsh. But, and then Judy, I think, is like the prototypical like hipster sister. Like Judy was kind of like the hipster style before the hipster style existed. Just a lot of memorable episodes. I love that Halloween episode with the haunted house. I still think it's one of the coolest haunted hauses that I've seen in a Halloween special. I love the idea of them designing a theme park around a haunted house, like an actual historical haunted house. That's just a crazy cool idea. Just a lot. I don't know. I just have a lot of endearing love for Doug. I really think it's a simple show, but it really holds up on its laurels quite well.
It's the Nickelodeon happy days.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. All right, number 15, Jacob.
Dragon.
Oh, Dragon. I'm sorry. My bad.
We need name tags.
We have name tags.
All right, so number 15, Powerpuff Girls.
Okay.
So, in many respects, this was kind of it's not one for one, mind you. In many respects, this was kind of Cartoon Network's Rugrats. Obviously had much more appealing designs from
You
the
sure it's
early
not more
Rugrats.
like Cartoon Network's SpongeBob, given the time
I
period?
mean, wait, well, how late was Powerpuff Girls, though?
I think it actually predated SpongeBob.
Did it?
Well,
Okay,
that's what I'm
my
saying
bad.
to you. So I don't know if SpongeBob's necessarily the right compare. Anyway, point
Okay,
being,
I'm sorry.
well, I used the Rugrats comparison for the youth appeal and the
Oh.
fact that it was like a huge money maker for at least it was very marketable for a while it was on tantamount to the Rugrats, and Rugrats seemed to have more state power, I think. Regardless, that's the thing. I mean, the Power Girls had so much going on for it. I mean, it's had a very appealing design. Really, it pushed through the barrier because it got got the pilot approved during one of the Aaahh cartoon kind of things. Well, not sorry, not wait. Was Aaahh cartoons the one on that? Is Aaahh cartoons the Nickelodeon one? Is that the Cartoon Network one?
I think it was actually world premiered. What a cartoon! It was What a Cartoon,
What a cartoon! Thank you.
and
Anyway.
it actually came out in '98.
Okay, so I guess I don't know, maybe.
So it basically predated SpongeBob by a year.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so maybe SpongeBob is more the contemporary. Fair point. Anyway, point being, it's it's in the lines of a big moneymaker that Nickelodeon had. Maybe Rugrats for the youth demographic, maybe SpongeBob for the popularity, what have you. Point being, you have a superhero parody that still holds up. It's funny as heck. And I mean, honestly, until the stuff post the movie again, as kind of the broken record plays, it was one of even that's okay. It's just not as good as the original stuff. I mean, of course, Mojo. The two standouts for me with Powerpuff, of course, outside of the main cast themselves, is Roger Jackson's Mojo Jojo and Tom Kane as Professor Utonium. Just the fact that you have like this literal 50 square, more rectangle, let's just say square for comparison's sake here, literal 50s rectangle, just being kind of like a classic 50s sci-fi B movie professor of sorts, and but he's also, and the movie didn't go make strides to really help emphasize this as well, but they also had episodes that dealt with this as well, like Power Prof, for example. He was a loving father, to these girls, his creations, and he cared about them very deeply, and he. And then of course you have Mojo Jojo, who is this hilarious, over the top villain who has a phenomenal design. As I'm saying, the show just looks super appealing with the color palette they used and everything, and designs of these characters, and the fact that Mojo Jojo wears a cape. He's got like the awesome triangular design. He's essentially he's a monkey with he's a green monkey, and he's got like a exposed brain that he wears like a big old hat on. Just the fact that this guy is supervillain as they come. He's got to buy eggs for his breakfast in the morning. And just the mundanity. I think it's called another manic mojo or something. I think that's what the episode's called. Just the fact that he has to go grocery shopping. He's dealing with the Powerpuff Girls, like the neighbor kids who like toss the ball through his window, and he's got. That's what I'm saying. Powerpuff Girls had so many clever episodes like that. And I loved it specifically when they hit mundanity and they hit kind of like the feels with the Utonium stuff. But I mean, with the mundane stuff. I think it's called Supper Villain, which you have this average Joe. Basically, it feels like a Batman the Animated Series episode, which is why I love it. You have this average Joe, pretty much like a clock king, if you will, almost. Average Joe who just snaps one day in his mundane kind of family existence, sees a supervillain, he gets an idea. I'm going to become a supervillain. He invites the Powerpuff Girls for dinner, and he plots to destroy them. But again, supervillain who's basically suburban dad. So what does he have as a weapon? Squirt gun that maybe zaps you a little bit. It's about it. And then they come back as like a whole family of supervillains. It's wonderful. But that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of memorable stuff with the Powerpuff Girls. I would be here all day if I recounted it. But you have stuff like the Collector episode, which always freaked me out. The idea of the Powerpuff Girls being collected by an Uber fan and put in the plastic. Heady. Regardless, it's got great stuff. It's very. The reason it outranks Rugrats is that it's just super fun on a rewatch. It does hold up, but I would probably stop before seasons 5 and 6, just in terms of like just ending on a high note, versus like, and we have that, but then they have like their big comeback special after 10 years, which was nice, but still, it's just Powerpuff Girls is just it's a great concept. It's got great villains. Again, this is to me probably kind of a tick parody with more stay power. I think the Powerpuff Girls is just insanely funny and something you probably could still show to your kids today and still like get them into it. But dear God, don't show them that reboot. All right,
Jacob.
First off, before I do mine, I'm surprised you didn't mention him, Dragon.
Oh yeah, him's fantastic as well. Of course, him very creepy. Additionally, yes. Just again, if Joker from Batman the Animated Series has some blue meaning in him is all the blue meaning. He's blue
Oh,
meaning, but
absolutely,
he's a red meanie.
Him was actually the reason I discovered the Blue Meanie in the first place, because my parents were like, "That guy's like the Blue Meanie in the Yellow Submarines. We should show you that movie."
Yeah.
Considering McCracken's a big fan of the Beatles, it honestly wouldn't be surprising if that was an inspiration for him.
Speaking of which, but I'm sorry, before we move on, there's a whole Beatles episode of the Powerpuff
Oh
Girls.
yeah, classic.
Meet the Beatles.
The Meet the Beatles, which has all these Beatle lyrics worked into the dialogue of the episode, which baffled me endlessly as a kid, by the way. But of course, upon later years, that's what they were doing. But fun fact, again, him very very Beatles referenced in the Beatles episode. It makes sense anyway.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent before my own.
Z&K says the villains and rogues gallery of Townsville is on par with the versatility and creativity of the Batman.
Yeah, which was impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
In that Beatles episode, did they ever use the line "Everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey"?
I'm pretty sure, yes.
Okay,
considering Mojo Jojo's in there,
yeah. I was gonna
totally
say, like
sense.
with Mojo Jojo, it's too perfect not
Does
to.
does the Guitar Gently Weep song count as a Beatles song? Or is that purely?
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, it should kind of just be a George Harrison song because of the nature of that album. Like basically all the songs on that album were recorded by the individual members on a solo level, but yeah, it's technically a Beatles song.
Anyway, 15, Jacob.
All right, considering that I just created that whole new tangent and that we just talked about this recently, Dexter's Lab.
All right.
Of course, again, great early work of Genndy Tartakovsky. Now the character designs are all great. Like obviously Dexter and Dee Dee are great contrast to each other, and Mandark, though his voice may be a bit grating, was actually a good foil to Dexter in the episodes that he did appear in. And of course, Ego Trip served as a great initial finale to the series.
I watched the clip from Ego Trip recently. Just older Dexter is awesome, but not the old man Dexter. That's fine. That's funny. But I just mean the Jeff Bennett sounding tough guy Dexter. It's awesome.
Yeah. So, of course, Tartakovsky's later works would probably earn him, like especially Samurai Jack, would earn him much more greater recognition, and probably what he's best known for to this day. So, but Dexter's Laboratory, still a fun watch. Like, of course, omelette du fromage. I took French, and technically the correct proper pronunciation is omelette au fromage, by the way. But who cares? It's a cartoon. But anyway, still, show was a lot of fun. You gotta love the whole shtick of the laboratory. Of course, as Tiki mentioned, a great laboratory is a great set piece. The same one goes on for miles.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, anything could happen in the laboratory. So, proved a great testing ground in many ways. And
all right, cool.
Keeping it brief.
Okay, my number 15 is going to be Cow and Chicken, right in the middle.
Oh, nice.
I think the show is iconic. I really think it's kind of funny because it's like you look back at like the great gross out comedy of the 90s, and everyone always goes to Ren and Stimpy. But I really think Cow and Chicken is the show that still kind of like Ren and Stimpy still kind of has, individual episodes that hold up. But Cow and Chicken, I don't know. It's one of those shows where it's like, it's so stupid and so juvenile and so disgusting that I think it just kind of loops back around to being really funny again.
It has a certain charming manic energy.
Yeah, totally. I definitely don't think it would be anywhere near a good show if it weren't for Charlie Adler. I mean, he absolutely just fucking steals the show. I mean, he, Cow and Red Guy are both just iconic cartoon voiceover performances.
He voices basically all three of the main characters.
Oh, does he voice Chicken too? Oh, nice.
Yeah, we went over this, Tiki. Yes.
I don't know why I forgot that. So yeah, just absolutely, it's a tour de force for him then. I don't have a ton to say about it that hasn't already said. I love the fact that the parents are literally just legs. That's just a sight gag that will never get old to me. I do think that having I Am Weasel in there is is kind of the midway point in the episode. It's a little awkward. Like, I remember as a kid I would be like, I Am Weasel. But you know what? I actually think I like it now because, like I said, I think I Am Weasel does kind of provide that kind of like more sharp social satire kind of humor in the middle of the two gross out segments. So the more I think about it, the more I actually think that format works really well. All right.
Yeah, and of course, the in case says stupid gross out always wins over disgusting gross out.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And Cow and Chicken was very much stupid gross out for sure.
And keep in mind, though, it's like we do say stupid, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
No, I think it just means like there is definitely a certain kind of stupid humor that just really works for me.
Stupid humor can be very well written.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's a fine line to tread, but it is there.
I think Andy Samberg does really well with stupid humor.
Oh, and one more thing for Dexter's Lab, it can't be said like how many careers launched because of it. Anyway,
Of course.
Sorry.
All right, number 14, Dragon.
Johnny Bravo.
All right.
Ooh.
Yeah, this was again. It's really hard to rank because here's the thing. Johnny Bravo has a special place in my heart, man. I love this show. I do. It's of course, it's like kind of an animated send up to Elvis. Was always I think kind of the most memorable visual thing of the shows. Man, you have this character a lot like Elvis. You don't see that every day. And think about how rare this is. You have a show in which we have kind of a grown, essentially a grown male protagonist, which, I mean, think of the last time that really happens. I mean, especially in the 90s. I mean, very rarely, I mean, even before that point, very rarely would you have that, Unless specifically it's like a superhero show or something. I mean, it's like a non-superhero show in which you'd have like a Batman or a Superman. Very rarely would you. It's always going to be like the young child protagonist, or it's going to be something like that. Anyway, John Bravo, I think Jeff Bennett plays the role perfectly as this wonderfully stupid, failed ladies' man. With
I mean, I think Johnny Bravo's another good example of stupid humor done well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, stupid humor very much in the sense of like a character who's
himself is
stupid.
Literally stupid.
Yes, a wonderfully stupid, incompetent character, but again, not like later seasons of Fairly Odd Parents Cosmo, just more so like
Oh no! Oh God, no! Oh my God!
Not to mention like how overconfident he is.
Exactly. And there's an endearing quality to it because he's John Bravo's not afraid to be himself, and he has there's a lot of self-positivity going on there, but clearly,
which is to be admired in some aspect.
In some aspect, yes. And I mean, to me, John Bravo's brought up briefly in the previous segment, but just to kind of recap it a bit here, is like the best of Johnny Bravo to me personally, I think, is the crossovers. Overall, season 1 of Johnny Bravo is my favorite of all 4 seasons. And the first season, because again, it felt more purely creator driven. I'm not saying the other seasons weren't, part of the show weren't really had the creators involved or anything, but it just felt more like animators and animation guys coming together and doing something really fun that they got a real kick out of before. It's like, and we're going back to work. It felt like fun versus work of like, yeah, we're doing the show because that's what we've been doing. And, maybe some network notes came in. We have to, restructure things a bit. And I'm not saying what we got after season 1. It was not bad. It just wasn't as special as the first season. Because I mean, the first season we had crossovers throughout, but all the best crossovers were in the first season because you had Adam West, which is the best one. Oh my God, I love that. And of course, because of that, get Adam West on Family Guy. We have Seth MacFarlane and Butch Hartman, kind of working together at times during the show, and of course, it kind of gives us the springboard where Seth MacFarlane's career went. You have the Donny Osmond, just basically the Sound of Music with Donny Osmond.
I forgot that was a Sound of Music parody. Oh my
God! He was basically Donny Osmond was Julie Andrews and was his babysitter. He was Johnny Bravo's nanny. That was his role. And Johnny couldn't stand him. And of course, you have like Bravo Doobie Doo. Again, the list goes on. You have a lot of. I think ultimately why Johnny Bravo worked as well as it did is that Johnny Bravo was like the perfect face for 90s Hanna-Barbera. It was the update Hanna-Barbera needed that was going to something kind of new, but by the same token, something very retro in design with kind of the Elvis kind of slant to it. And in doing so, with all the crossovers, especially like Bravo Doobie Doo, we could dip into Hanna-Barbera's past, but kind of give it a needed update in terms of like, let's show what we had with Hanna-Barbera, but also just kind of like, bring it into the 90s a bit without having to like go through like, hey, here's a new Flintstone show for you, but they're kids. Like, let's just bring them in. We don't need the reason. Here's John Bravo runs into them. So yeah, I mean, it was in celebration of what Hanna-Barbera did for all these years, and just kind of had like a loving kind of reverence applied to it, but did not overwhelm what the concept of the show was. It's a very simple concept. Johnny Bravo hits on women, never goes well. He thinks he's an action hero. He can't fight for anything except punching Santa that one time. And also you get Mae Whitman making her big break. Mae Whitman, Katara from After Our Last Airbender. She first appearance in this. So yeah, it's an unconventional cartoon. And when we get into like seasons 2 through 4, I mean, I love the location of Pop's Diner, and I like Pops as a character. And in a weird sense, me overanalyzing John Bravo, so bear with me. Johnny kind of gets a father figure in Pops, not like a touchy feely, like nothing heavy in terms of like a relationship there. But just he's a male figure in Johnny's life that he respects, kind of father figure. I don't know. Then you have Carl. Let's face it, Carl essentially is the response of, well, we can't have Donny Osmond in every episode, so we have to have a character that by comparison looks very different than Johnny, that he's not going to like. Basically, we need kind of a normal / Ned Flanders figure, so we give him Carl.
And of course, we got Tom Kenny for that.
Yes, and we love Tom Kenny. Good old Tom. So, I mean, the show, we look at it, the show is edgy by today's standards, but you know what? Darn it, I'm tired of everyone saying, Johnny Bravo never fly. You know what? Maybe we need a little edgy today. Maybe we need edgy that's not pushing the boundaries like other shows we're getting now. They're like, let's see how edgy we can make other Hanna-Barbera properties. I'm not saying the title. You know what? Let's not do that. Let's just do something that's naturally edgy, but not pushing it too far. Let's just do something in the middle instead of going one way or the other. That's Johnny Bravo.
Okay, well said. Jacob.
All right. My number 14, maybe you guys won't be too happy with, but Recess.
Yeah, it's a little low. It's fine.
I concur.
I mean, what can I say? I mean, I'm sure you guys will probably say much more about it, but like, honestly, I was kind of surprised at this one myself. Like, honestly thought it would be higher considering the nostalgia and remembering watching it a lot on Toon Disney as I was a kid. What even ranking all the other stuff that I did, like I basically went through my top 10 first and then did this, and I realized like, hey, Recess isn't on my list, on my top 10 list. And even then, I was surprised it didn't make it as high as it did. But I can't deny, like, this show is fantastic. Like, has a lot of like resonance and stuff that resonate even to this day. Like, it has fantastic, memorable characters, smart, intelligent writing. Like the characters are all fantastic. And even the movie was half decent. I have to admit, I haven't seen any of like the direct-to-video specials or anything like that. Like, All Grow Down or Taking the Fifth Grade. I haven't seen any of those, admittedly. But Recess did speak a lot to me as a kid. Like it's honestly sometimes some of it is even, especially later seasons, when you peek into the lives of the teachers, it becomes relatable as both a kid and as an adult as well. Like, of course, like the most recent episode I watched, of course, was one that was you guys all about Weekend at Muriel's. Me. I mean, initially I was gonna play like, guess who put Recess at number 14? Me. Yes. But yes, I'm sure you guys will say more about this, and I'm guessing you guys are probably surprised that it's even this low. And
no, it's all good, Jacob.
Heck, I'm even surprised myself putting it there.
It'll be in the report, Jacob.
All right. But like I said, this is like one of the shows I probably watched the most on Toon Disney. It's like this is probably one of the shows that actually defined Toon Disney for me. But when I was a kid, But even then, through sheer happenstance and rewatching a lot of it recently, and even remembering a lot of the other stuff, this is where it ended up. Like I said, great characters, great concept. Of course, like some of the most episodes that always stuck out to me was the box. Let's see, the economics episode, strangely enough, the one where they got sick. Of course, School's Out. I do remember seeing that. Let's see. And of course the Halloween episode. I think that was like near the end of the series. And of course, a great Christmas special. Yes, Mikey, Santa does shave.
That's a great one.
Yeah,
I love that one.
Like, you invited me, remember?
Nice. James Earl Jones is Santa Claus.
Oh yeah.
And he shaves.
Santa shaved.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like great series, great slice of life, and basically love the overall concept, and it's influencing a lot of this stuff. Secretly kind of influencing all the stuff I'm working on in a way. But all in all, so yeah. Can't really say much more about it than that. Then you guys will probably say more about it on your next list if it is there. So.
Oh, it's there.
Dragon, is it there for you too?
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure you guys will say more about it as well. But I've said my piece, and I'm perfectly fine with putting it at number 14. So,
all right.
So Tiki, not your turn.
Yeah, my number 14 is going to be Timon and Pumbaa.
Timon and Pumbaa.
Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that this is the best of the Disney adaptations. And the reason I say that is I think Timon and Pumbaa, we already kind of had this discussion, but I think it both works really well in the context of it almost laughs in the face of the fourth wall and in the face of continuity with the actual Lion King show or Lion King movie. But what I love about Timon and Pumbaa as a cartoon is that I feel like as far as the characters go, sure, you don't have Nathan Lane doing the voice, but I think the guy they got was pretty good.
Nathan Lane was actually in a fair number of episodes.
Was he? I wasn't sure.
But not
I know
all.
there were other people that did Timon.
It's like he had at least 3 or 4 voice actors throughout the show.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
One of which was Nathan Lane, but he was basically too expensive.
And they all did a really good job. And so, yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's it really maintains the spirit of what it's adapting, which isn't the Lion King, it's the characters Timon and Pumbaa. And I honestly think the characters are more palatable in this, and especially in the in my beloved Walt Disney World Resort safety videos that they play at the hotels. Jacob, I don't know if you've ever seen those.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Oh, those are freaking delightful, man. Oh my god.
And of course, the safety episodes.
Yeah. But yeah, I just think the show was really masterful at just doing exactly what it set out to do, which was to, translate these really big fan favorite characters into a cartoon setting. I think it's a really good example of kind of just sticking to landing on your mission statement.
See, in cases, my friend Bruce voices Timon in those. Your friend is Bruce Lanoyle?
Nice.
Apparently. Because I remember Bruce voiced him in several other things, including Kingdom Hearts 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
But yeah, Wild About Safety. Honestly, Wild About Safety is even better than the actual show itself, just because I have all the Disney World nostalgia attached to that.
Like I said, on Facebook.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off, Tiki.
No, it's fine. All right, number 13. Dragon, what do you got?
Number 13, SpongeBob SquarePants.
What? I'm just kidding.
That's going to become
Dragon, I'm sure that the ambiguity of the timeline probably had something to do with this, right?
I mean, let me put it this way. Number 12 and 11 were very hard to rank, and I was going back and forth whether or not to put them on the 10 spot. or not. So, I mean, SpongeBob, it just kind of falls in there. And yeah, there's some ambiguity there because it's kind of hard to discount what comes after. And then you have like the 3 great seasons. I don't know. It's a whole, yeah. So the original 3 seasons of SpongeBob they're just works of comedic art. They just are. They're phenomenal. I mean, for me, I was always a Krusty Krab.
They're literally part of like the cultural language.
Exactly. I was always my favorite segments of SpongeBob were always the Krusty Krab. Those were always. I felt that was the show. Like honestly, if they minimized, if they had ever had to minimize the show, like just the Krusty Krab show, I'm there. You know, cause I loved Mr. Krabs. I love the simple idea that Mr. Krabs is a takeoff on the comedian Jack Benny. So it's the idea that it's basically Jack Benny but as a crustacean and who runs a restaurant. That's hysterical to me. And of course, played by the wonderful Clancy Brown, who's doing a great job. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, SpongeBob ended out the '90s proper in animation. Like, what's one last little kind of like nugget we can squeeze out before we do the changeover? SpongeBob.
And also
Yay!
one of the less syndicated series to be animated series to be cell animated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like this, I mean, SpongeBob it holds a place of honor. It was the next perennial cartoon smash hit. This was like the next like definitive cartoon. I mean, the amount of things. This was huge. Again, this was like the big changer. We start off with like your Rugrats, and we end on a SpongeBob.
Basically those two like basically established Nickelodeon. This one cemented it.
Exactly. So I mean, obviously, there's pretty much you can't miss. I went through this painstakingly, and Jacob knows this. We went through painstakingly through the original 3 seasons of SpongeBob, and there's not really a miss in that initial batch. Because I mean, you got like for me, I love the pilot, which kind of establishes everything. And you'll notice most of these are Krusty Krab specific. I love the Squilliam episodes, specifically Squilliam Returns, in which we turn the Krusty Krab into a 5-star restaurant, and SpongeBob forgets his name. It doesn't go well.
Everything except fine dining and breathing.
Yep, and it just cracks me up that if Squidward just had the wherewithal to just say, "This is SpongeBob," he would have saved him so much trouble. But I mean, stuff like Pickles, for example, like there were good morals in the original SpongeBob too. You had like the Pickles thing, where it's kind of like a Western in the third act, which I love, but it's also like the self-doubt that we all have when we make mistakes. And then you had King Neptune with the great John O'Hurley. So much great gold that was mined from that little yellow square dude. It's just, but ultimately, it just goes really downhill post the movie because it's just a shame in cartoons they kind of become cash cows at a certain point. They become cash cows in the sense of bigger than God once they finally get a movie, which is like, yeah, this is all we've really ever wanted was to do the series, and you end on the movie, and Bob's your uncle. We told our story, yay! But no,
SpongeBob's your uncle.
SpongeBob's your uncle, yes. And it just gets to this point of like, hey, we have mortgages to pay. We have families, wives, and children. Then it's like Nickelodeon says, well, last I checked, we still like money, so we're going to keep doing it.
And to be fair, the first half of season 4 is good.
Well, sure. What I'm saying is, Jacob, it's the fact that it can't maintain itself, and the fact is, like, the cash cow is going to keep getting milked until it keels over. And I mean, it's basically its own life support at this point, but it's still there. I don't know. I don't know. It's just SpongeBob. It's kind of like a baseball Hall of Fame record. That original. I'm not a sports guy at all, as you can probably tell. It's kind of like it's like a Hall of Sports Hall of Fame thing. Of those 3 seasons, it's like one of those things where baseball play like a Babe Ruth says this many home runs in a row. It's like, my God, three like ironclad seasons in a movie. That's the dream. That's the goal, and they did it. It's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Should I move on to my 13?
I mean, we have comments, but I guess we'll snub them.
Dragon, Tiki, highlight your comments if you want.
Yeah, sure. Z&K says SpongeBob is one of those oddballs. Anytime there's one of those shows that start at the end of the decade, there's always a feeling like its cultural significance is more of a 2000s.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of another weird thing with SpongeBob here in terms of the ranking.
Like Seinfeld debuted in '89, more remembered as a '90s thing.
Same with The Simpsons, basically.
No, yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, CNK. You didn't word it poorly. Yeah, Jacob, Simpsons is another perfect example of that. Yeah,
literally aired in December of '89, and the rest of that season was in the 90s.
Because of that Santa's Little Helper episode, like, hey, let's have our Christmas episode in Christmas.
Unlike the Halloween episode, which they air in November.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Jacob, go ahead.
All right, sorry.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
My number 13 is having a lot of Spielberg this time. Pinky and the Brain.
Okay,
it's pretty good.
Yep. I'll try and keep it brief since
I had a hard time with Pinky and the Brain just because, like, I feel like we get enough of it in Animaniacs that I don't necessarily think it holds up as its own full thing.
Well, like I said, I'll try and keep it brief since we kind of did touch upon it when Dragon did Animaniacs. But but contrary to what Tiki said, I actually do think it holds up quite well on its own. Like, and that's one reason why I did rank it so high. So it's like, this is another one that kind of like Animaniacs, like its parent show. It's like, it's one of those shows that you watch as a kid and enjoy, like, kind of like the antics and everything. But as an adult, you understand like the deeper references, the like what's actually going on and everything, like what they're referencing, like a lot of even a lot of like the political humor involved in this show too. Like one of the episodes is literally Pinky becoming president of the United States. That's one of the episodes. That's actually one of the episodes I own on iTunes, believe it or not. But I think obviously Pinky and the Brain was one of the most popular segments on Animaniacs, so it's like, hey, they decided to spin it off into their own series, and whereas I think kind of Freakazoid kind of like fell off after switching to the whole episode long format instead of like doing individual segments, I think Pinky and the Brain actually kind of benefited from it due to their style of humor. Is that some episodes did have individual segments, and it did have like some holdovers for like of course the Brainstem song, which is of course like the educational segment. But all in all, I think Pinky and the Brain holds up. It holds up as like has its own cartoon in its own right. Like I said, of course, you have like the wonderful holidays, the Christmas specials like Pinky and the Brain Christmas, which actually won the Outstanding Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program, which is pretty historic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
We won an Emmy.
But we got a memo. Freakazoid did get the memo from Spielberg. Can't take that away from it.
Okay, that is true. I will say that you did get a memo. So that is pretty nice. A personal memo from Steven. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But that's like they said it's smart in ways you didn't anticipate as a kid. And like Animaniacs, as I said, it's something you can appreciate as both watching as a kid and sometimes possibly even more as an adult. That's why it's not ranked. It's not ranked the highest on my list as far as Spielberg goes, but Spielberg and Ruger shows go. But I think with its clever combination of clever writing, exceptional voice acting from Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson as the two main characters, who are delightful in their own right, by the way, and a great cast of one-shot characters, villains, recurring characters, and of course Acme Labs is always a great setting. Like I always like laboratories as a setting, as you can probably see. But so I guess Pinky and the Brain holds up, and that's why it's number 13.
Okay, my number 13 for me, y'all already pretty much covered most of what we need to say about it, but it's going to be Powerpuff Girls. Yeah, clearly a touchstone of the late 90s, very, very popular. I definitely think, like, as far as, like, cultural impact and popularity and merchandise and everything, it was on the same level as SpongeBob back in the day. And I have it ranked up here because I really do think the Villains Rogues Gallery is just that good. I mean, you really just... it is one of those shows that just kind of fires on all cylinders when it comes to the villains. And the main characters aren't bad either. I mean, of course, Dragon, you said it perfectly with the Professor Utonium of it all. It's just an absolutely delightful character. The three girls are pretty basic personalities, but they work well off of each other. They're kind of meant to be more... I'm sorry, guys. I'm having like acid reflux. They're kind of meant to be more sort of
flat characters.
Generic. Yeah, blank slates. Exactly. Yeah.
Tabula rasa.
Exactly. But I will say the reason why this show is not in my top 10 is because it did unfortunately kind of suffer from the seasonal rot thing, where it is hard to look at this show as a whole. Like, obviously, unfortunately, the 2016 show, I can't, like, I'm not going to take that away from this show, but I mean, the 26, it's hot garbage. It's one of the worst animated shows I've ever seen. I mean, there is some really morally bad stuff in that show.
Oh yeah,
like morally bad.
Yeah,
but
maybe you think they're good at She-Hulk, bro? Guff, I mean, come on.
But yeah, I do think the last couple seasons of this show, it's not bad. It's just and I don't think it had quite the downslide as Rugrats, but kind of in the same vein as Rugrats. It was sort of just like, by the end, you could kind of tell they had exhausted a lot of their best ideas by that point.
Yep.
But yeah, I still think it's a very, very solid entry into this lineup. Okay, let's move on. Number 12. What do you got, Dragon?
Okay, this was a really tough one to rank, and there was a lot of trial and tribulation over where to put this one. Gargoyles. Yeah, Gargoyles is a really good one.
It's good. I think I would rank it higher if I grew up on it, although I know you didn't grow up on it either.
Well, that's the thing. So that's my point, where Gargoyles was a late discovery for me, but I mean, it really was. Now, to be fair, if I recall my research on this leading up to this, not technically a Disney show, but it ultimately it was ABC, and this is like during the period where ABC, by the third season of Gargoyles, they had bought it. So technically it becomes a Disney show. So it's kind of weird how that works out. So
it was always produced by Disney, though.
Well, are you sure about that? Because I mean,
it's like always produced by Walt Disney Television Animation.
Well, no, I know they added that. Well, Jacob, when did you see that?
Like, I mean, it was always on Disney. Like,
yeah, right. It's always been Disney. Yeah,
it's not like something they acquired.
Well, yes, but neither of you guys saw it when it aired, though. They eventually put it on Disney. I'm saying when it was
no, but I'm saying the trailer for the pilot episode was on the Nightmare Before Christmas VHS.
Okay, well then again,
that's my authority on it.
Well, it was Touchstone, though. I mean, that's the thing. Touchstone,
which is Disney.
I'm aware that Touchstone is Disney. What I'm saying is Disney, Touchstone, as you know, was kind of on the fringes of Disney, which allowed them to get a little more edgy with the stuff they put out, right?
Yeah, it's like
I don't know what to tell you, Dragon. It's a fucking Disney show.
All right, fine.
It's always been a Disney cartoon.
I know. Okay, regardless.
All right, God.
Why are we having a debate over this?
We're not having a debate. Anyway.
Even seeing Case says it.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway. So yes, Gargoyles was late discovered for me, but essentially it was Disney's Batman the Animated Series. I mean, in terms of quality, in terms of execution, everything, I'm sure what was really helped by this is the fact that a lot of the Batman the Animated Series team and Spectacular Spider-Man team had worked on the show in the first two seasons. So yeah, you have Greg Wiseman leading the charge on this with a compelling story about these gargoyles who essentially been kind of plucked from time in a sense, kind of due to kind of shenanigans that happened, and they basically are kind of this is kind of like part of the machinations of kind of our Lex Luthor-esque character, who was the best character in the show. I love him. You have David Xanatos. I love me some Xanatos. He's David freaking Xanatos. He's Jonathan Frakes playing essentially this combination. The best way I could describe David Xanatos is Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek, who has amazing range, because usually you look at the Star Trek as you think, okay, John DeLance is going to be, DeLance is going to be the impressive one of that. He's going to be getting all the bad guy roles, which most of the time he does. But no, man, Frakes. He basically plays a combination of Lex Luthor, Tony Stark, and Ra's al Ghul. It's essentially who this guy is. He's like three excellent, awesome, rich, smart characters rolled into one. So essentially, the premise of Gargoyles, you have these warriors who find kind of noble purpose in 90s New York, and love the cast. Of course, you have Faber Bacon. Is that how you say Patrick's voice actor's name?
I honestly have no idea how to say his last name.
Thanks. Okay. Point being, the voice of Patrick, you have them. You have Ed Asner, again, of course, the wonderful Keith David as Goliath, the leader. And I love the dynamic he has with kind of their human cop friend, kind of like, I guess, with the Ninja Turtles comparison, kind of their April O'Neil figure, if you will, kind of a fusion of Gordon and April O'Neil, kind of Lisa Mazda. Love her dynamic with Goliath. Again, they tackle a lot of bold subjects on Gargoyles. You had Broadway, the character voiced by I believe Bill Faberbacon or Faberbach, however you pronounce that guy's name. That character shot Elisa with a handgun. They did it on a kids show. They got away with it. It was a compelling topic because again we approach these issues instead of whimpering in fear of them. Yeah, there's a lot of growth and development on the characters, particularly with Xanatos. You had some great reveals on the show at times, like the Owens the Owen Burnett character, which I'm sure was a nod to Alan Burnett, but I can never prove it. But it's just Gargoyles, man. It holds up. It's kind of hard to condense why Gargoyles is so great, but essentially, again, it is Batman the Animated Series for Disney. And a lot of people say, well, Darkwing Duck's the Batman the Animated. Well, yeah, they're going for that sort of thing, but still, I mean, come on. This is this is true, like in terms of the animation, the production, everything, just how it looks. It just feels like Disney did something really right with Gargoyles. It's a compelling drama of a show. It's not a superhero show per se, but it's kind of a vigilante superhero show, one could say. I don't know. Just this thing works, and it's worth a watch if anyone has not seen this thing by some miracle. I know it has its fans out there, and it definitely is. Especially being on Disney Plus, it's worth a rewatch.
Plus, it's kind of big for, as you said, at the time, it had like a serialized narrative when a lot of cartoons, even Batman itself, didn't have serialized narratives.
There you go. Z in case out there. Darkwing Duck's more Adam West Batman, where this is more Batman the Animated Series. And you're right, sir.
All right. My number 12, is it? Unless there's something else you guys want to highlight?
No.
Dragon, it's funny you should mention Batman the Animated Series. Because that's my number 12.
That is also my number 12.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We've had overlaps, but never at the same spot.
Uh-huh.
I guess we can tag team this one.
All right. let's break Dragon's heart, Jacob.
It's like obviously we don't hate this series. We love it. Obviously.
No, of course not. Obviously not. Okay, honestly, one of the big reasons why I kept it out of my top 10 is just because I know, like, Dragon, I'm sorry, I don't want to make assumptions, but I'd be pretty damn surprised if it's not your number 1. So, it's one of those things where I know it's going to get more love on Dragon's End. I know that Dragon's going to talk it up to the high heavens. So, I respect the hell out of it. And obviously, Dragon and I, we went on the whole animated Batcave ride together. And that was great. That was awesome. Probably one of the best things we've ever done on the podcast. Jacob, I'll let you go.
It's like, oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I remember watching this series all the time when it aired on Jetix, as I mentioned before, when I believe I brought up Spider-Man. I said I love this show. Like this is probably the show that outside of a few of the parodies, this is probably the show that introduced me to Batman. One of my earliest memories of Batman. Probably same for a lot of people. And it probably is still the best adaptation of Batman we've ever had. Even better than like it has great production qualities. Animation, music, storytelling, and everything, but I do have the nostalgia for it isn't as high as others, and there are other shows from that era that I have more fondness of it. But I obviously can't deny the influence that this show had.
Yeah, I will say that there's shows on my top 10 that, like, I feel like they're more kind of like cornerstones than they are just super, like, obviously with Batman the Animated Series, there's a lot of super memorable episodes and characters. Of course, Batman the Animated Series, it is one of those things where there is a little tiny bit of ambiguity of the fact that it is technically 3 different shows, kind of, not really, sort of. With the new adventures of Batman and Robin and whatnot, but of course the style change at the end, which I will say, season 4, I really, really like season 4, like on animated Batcave. It was surprising to me how much I like season 4 because I really like how dark that season got.
Oh yeah. Like I really like I said, we can say a lot of good things about it. I just honestly didn't feel it. Just honestly, in my own personal conscience, couldn't rank it any higher than this.
Yeah, like I said, my top 10. There's one show in particular I'm kind of looking at in my top 10 that I think I did probably rank it too high, but it is one of those sort of like it's a really important cornerstone historically. So, and I'm not saying Batman the Animated Series isn't important historically. Of course it is, but yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I honestly just didn't want to compete with Dragon in the same podcast as far as having to talk it up. That's honest to God probably one of the big reasons why I put it just outside of my top 10.
I mean, honestly, I was afraid what you guys would think too, but I didn't let that in obviously influence my final decision on where to place it.
Mm-hmm.
But I still stand by it.
Okay, let's loop back around. Number 11, Dragon, what do you got?
My number 11 is Rocko's Modern Life.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so Rocko's Modern Life. I have like bags and bags of nostalgia for. I have just an utter love for it, and honestly, probably much as I like SpongeBob, I think objectively SpongeBob would be higher. But I mean, just in terms of taste and kind of personal stuff, I think Rocko, it's kind of a midpoint between the three shows. It's a midpoint between Ren and Stimpy and SpongeBob. It's like right smack dab in the middle. I really like that about it. You know, I love that it. I just find it so nostalgic and rewatchable in terms of there is a simplicity of this really humble character, Rocko, who's just kind of making the adjustment after he's kind of moved from home from Australia and he's kind of in he's in the city. And early Rocko especially was all about a very simple premise. Like, okay, he's just doing mundane things that we all do, which is super relatable, mundane tasks. But again, played through kind of the vein of like fun cartoon shenanigans happen. Like he goes to the grocery store, one of my favorites. He goes to the beach. He deals with credit card debt. It's satirical but cartoony. There's a lot of really clever jokes that are kind of satirizing, again, the modern life of the '90s. Essentially, and of course now it's quite dated, which is funny. Which of course is why we have that Static Cling movie, which kind of updates things and makes satire on that. But yeah, it's the fact that this show again, Joe Murray, of course, a lot of these SpongeBob players, got their kind of made their bones on Rocko's Modern Life in terms of it's kind of surveying the waters for what would eventually lead to Under the Water with SpongeBob.
The funny thing is, I was first exposed to Joe Murray's work through Camp Lazlo.
Yeah, that's the thing. Here's the thing. When I watched Camp Lazlo, I did not piece together that was Joe Murray. But when I watched it, though, I knew, like, wait a minute. These characters there's something familiar about these characters. And, of course, I believe the character was Edward on Camp Lazlo. And he, of course, sounded like Doug Lawrence. And I did not piece together, wait a minute. There's some connective tissue here. That is Filbert. That is Plankton. That is the same guy. And so, of course, then you have like the big heads. And my favorite thing about the big heads, and that's a kind of fun thing with characters. We have like these hard nosed, or like kind of like the perennial kind of father characters always yelling at everyone. But you know what? Darn it, Mr. Bighead, Ed Bighead, he loved his wife dearly. He really cared about her. He loved her. I love the touchy feely moments between the two of them. Like, I think that the one of the great episodes. It's a ridiculous episode. It's kind of funny. It has like great pathos to it, despite the absurdity. Bev Bighead gets a nose. And you have this hysterical realization that now that she can smell, she realizes, because they're frogs and the frogs essentially, her husband stinks, and she's like behind his back, just putting deodorizers and everything on him, and all that's just already funny. But what that touches me though about the episode is at the end, well, she loses the nose because it's cartoon. We have to go back to status quo. But in doing so, this was like a big traumatic loss for her. She had a nose for the first time, and then she lost it. And there was Ed cheering her up, bringing a whole bunch of fake like Groucho noses and fake gag noses and everything, and cheering her up. And it's like, oh, it really it warms the cockles of the heart, dear friends. It's wonderful. And Then you have like these. I think my two of the favorite episodes, 2 or 3 of the favorite episodes of Rocket Modern Life. Yeah, the Magic Meatball is one people should watch. Okay, the Magic Meatball is absurdly hysterical, where it's a satire on how business works. Where Ed Bighead gets like a magic 8-ball that is a magic meatball essentially, and he keeps shaking it for the answers in his filings and his reports because basically he has to do like a yes or no kind of like a Scantron thing for work, and he has no idea what the answer to these questions. So he shakes the magic meatball and he gets yes or no answers. And he just fills it out. He escalates all the way to the top, and then the meatball becomes sentient, and is negotiating with him now. It's just, oh god. So you have that, and then the most meta episode of Rocko's Modern Life, most hysterical episode. I'm sure everyone at Nickelodeon loved this episode. Wacky Deli. Wacky Deli uses the self-insert character of Ralph Bighead, that essentially is Joe Murray, and he is, he's doing Rocco and company are doing a cartoon with him, in which it's he's trying to make the worst cartoon ever, so he gives them a cartoon, and they basically do this wacky deli thing, which it's about deli meats that are sentient, anthropomorphic deli meats. It devolves into this hysterically bad, but intentionally so thing. We're like, I am the cheese, I am the best character in the show. It's ridiculous. Stuff like Road Rash, where it's like a road trip episode, which again may or may not make our vacation-y thing. I don't know. But yeah, just this thing is just I'm rooting for the Wallaby. I'm laughing at his friends, and I'm having a darn good time watching it. I watch it anytime it comes on, except for one medical episode, like Tiki's Ralphie thing. I would not watch this. I would not run to the bathroom, but I would definitely plug my ears therein.
Which episode is that?
I'm not going to tell you that episode. Okay.
Ooh, interesting.
It's that bad. How
it's not bad. It's just I don't want to think about it. So I'm not going to tell you.
How will we know to avoid it then?
It's fine. Don't press him, Jacob. It's fine.
All right, fine. I won't.
Right. Okay, Jacob, you're number 11.
All right, my number 11. You guys might not like me for this, but Hey Arnold.
I kind of don't like
Judas.
What?
Judas.
What did you say, Tiki?
I said, I kind of don't like you.
Oh god.
Obviously, I'm kidding.
I know. But again, let me put it this too. I didn't actually watch Hey Arnold when I was younger. I actually started watching it as an adult. Really.
The arrogance of youth.
I started watching it as an adult, really. And it says to the test, considering a lot of these are ranked in how I felt them as a kid, this is how high I'm ranking it now, only watching it as an adult. Like, this show is like this. It's basically the Great Urban Adventure if it has a series. Like, there's so many wonderful, memorable characters. Hey Arnold's a great everyman. Like, peel back the layers of Helga. Like she's like very compelling character. And like she made like once you peel back the layers and understand what's going on with her, she becomes much more compelling, even if she kind of does lose some of it here and there. Like obviously you have Gerald, you have Phoebe, you have all these memorable, wonderful characters. You know, the grandma and grandpa, they're fantastic. Well, sorry, I'm kind of butchering my assessment of this show. I'm sorry, I apologize on that, but the show really speaks to me in a lot of ways. Like it's like one of the best like slice of life mundane cartoons, especially to come out of Nickelodeon. Especially to come out of Nickelodeon, like it's just a good-natured, good heart. Honestly, I think it'd been both. I'm sorry, I'm kind of butchering everything here. I'm kind of stuttering here.
Fine, Jacob, it's fine.
Okay, all right. But anyway, Hey Arnold speaks to me in many ways. It has a lot of good things going for it. Of course, like there's a lot of memorable episodes, including like the opera episode. There's obviously it even has some bad ones, like Arnold betrays Iggy, but we don't talk about that one. But yeah, I can't really not really going to say much about it, considering I'm kind of running my time here. But it's definitely one of Nickelodeon's greatest achievements. All right, I'm done.
Okay. All right, so number 11 for me. It was really kind of hard to leave this off of the top 10, and honestly, I'm kind of... Ugh. I'm just going to go ahead and name the show that I think I ranked way too high, and I will talk about it on my top 10, but I don't want to renege on it because Jacob already did the thumbnail because of the crossover, but Two Stupid Dogs is way too high on my list. It's in the top 10. I put it in the top 10 just because of how foundational it is to Cartoon Network as a whole. We'll get there when we get there. I do think it's a great show. I just, looking back on it, I do like, I don't know. I probably should have ranked it above stuff like Ed, and Eddy and Batman. But Ed and Eddy, I don't have a ton to say that you guys haven't already said. It's obviously a very surreal Dragon. I think what you said about it, like, how do you describe it? Like twisted Canadian peanuts or something? Like
Yes, that's how you describe it.
Yep.
Like that, it's perfect. It's like peanuts, except a little bit more mean-spirited and a little bit more kind of off-kilter and weird. And
the Eds, how we hate them.
Oh my god! But seriously, that is kind of the vibe.
It's like one of the most memorable ones. Pieces of that for me was like basically the episode where reality fell apart.
Of course, yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just one of those shows where just like very simple premise, but it all just kind of comes together so fundamentally well. The three main characters just work off of each other. The Z and K said earlier that the Eds are basically the Three Stooges, and I agree. It's kind of like a great kind of introduction to kind of great sort of trio-based comedy. I really think that all the side characters just really sing. I mean, you got Johnny, you got Rolf, you got Kevin, who almost kind of like, guys, is Kevin on this show kind of the genesis for the running gag of every Kevin is a douchebag?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It is kind of like, it's a thing. That's a thing.
I thought it was Chad.
Chad's, yeah, that's kind of different. I don't know. Rolf is iconic. I don't know. It's just all really, really great stuff. The Kanker sisters are a great kind of antagonistic force. The movie ended things off in a really memorable way. And I don't even really think it kind of suffered from any sort of seasonal right. I mean, yeah, the school stuff is a little off, but I don't really think that takes up too much of the actual like episodes. And overall, it's just a very solid, very quintessential kind of night. It really screams 90s, it really does, I think.
Which is kind of funny because it's more rooted in the 2000s than anything else.
No, it is, but it's one of those shows, it's kind of like Rocket Power in that way, where it kind of took all the foundations and aesthetics of the 90s and rolled it into something that would become really popular in the 2000s.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, guys. How we feeling? Do we all hate each other now?
Pretty much.
I mean, I don't have any difference towards you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Dragon's the only one that hates us right now.
No, I'm only partially kidding.
Only partially. I'm sure you were probably shocked by my placement of Hey Arnold.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I get it.
I mean,
all right. Well, folks, we will be back next week as we count up the top 10. Should be a very interesting show. Want to thank Z and K and Slasher Fred for joining us in the comments. Have a good night, everyone.
Woohoo!
And now the ranking's done.